Kia ora and welcome to Auckland. Today I'm going to be travelling on the only long distance train on New Zealand's North Island, the Northern Explorer. This will take us to the Kiwi capital, Wellington, and it promises some fantastic scenery. So let's go. In this video we'll check out the specially designed carriages, experience the open air viewing car, cross deep ravines on towering viaducts, and climb a world famous spiral, before finishing the day with the setting sun. We start today's journey in New Zealand's biggest city, Auckland, which is located in the upper North Island. The Northern Explorer starts from the Strand station, which is just over 1 kilometre east of the CBD. The Strand is not Auckland's main railway station. That's Britomart in the city centre. However, the Northern Explorer cannot use this underground station because it's hauled by a diesel, creating fumes. The Strand opened in 2011 but is only used by 2 trains, the Northern Explorer and Tahuya, which runs to Hamilton. The platform is a remnant of the old Auckland railway station, which closed in 2003. Good morning, I'm on my way to the Strand. It's a lovely day, which I'm hoping means good views from the train. The ticket office is made from shipping containers, and as you can see there's already quite a few passengers waiting to check in. All suitcases and large bags need to be checked in, and you need to arrive at the station at least 20 minutes before departure. You'll be given a boarding pass with your seat allocation, and your luggage will be tagged through to your destination. You take your checked bags to the luggage car and the staff will take care of them. The Northern Explorer connects New Zealand's most popular city with its capital, 3 days a week in each direction. We'll cover a distance of about 680 kilometres in about 10.5 hours. Today's service was sold out several weeks in advance. Our motive power today is DFB 7213. These locos have additional safety features required for passenger trains in New Zealand. The locos were originally built by General Motors Diesel of Canada, but have been rebuilt locally since. Today's train comprises an open-air viewing car, 3 passenger cars, a cafe car, and a luggage van. It can accommodate 189 passengers. Let's hop aboard. Seating is in a 2x2 single class layout, with most seats facing the direction of travel. That's my seat. There's USB outlets down here. And these are the controls for the audio system. Some seats are in bays of 4 around a table, which is useful for families and groups. There is a small overhead luggage rack, although staff say not to put heavy items there. These carriages were purpose-built in 2011 for New Zealand's long-distance trains. They have panoramic windows and skylights. The seats feature fold-down tray tables. You'll find headphones in the seat pocket so you can hear the onboard commentary. There's also a menu for the cafe, which we'll look at later. The legroom is very generous. Let's take a quick look at the open-air viewing car. This car also contains a generator for the train. We depart more or less on schedule. Here's the timetable for today's journey. There'll be a brief stop in Hamilton where we can stretch our legs, but we won't arrive in Wellington until tonight.
Our open-air carriage at the front of the service is a fantastic place to experience New Zealand up close. Please take care with personal items. Anything lost over the side will remain so. Traffic with children today, they need to be accompanied all the time whilst moving throughout the train. Please take care at the interconnected areas of the carriages with a requirement for is needed to be worn moving throughout the service as well. If you've brought alcohol on board with you today, you cannot drink this on the train. The licence that we've been granted does not allow people to bring aboard and consume their own alcohol. This range available in our cafe car They're running from the front of the train and we can be open. Do have to apologise for our level of coffee here today. Our machine is not functioning and we only have instant coffee available. We're very sorry about that. Not a very quick fix for us here with this machine. And it's from Makatote.
Looks like there's no latte for me today. This is a tidal inlet. The basin is formed from the submerged crater of an extinct volcano. We're now running over a causeway, which is part of Auckland's Eastern Line. There's no Wi-Fi, but I'm hoping the scenery will be more than enough entertainment. The staff come through to check tickets. I'm feeling a bit peckish, so let's head to the cafe to find something for breakfast. As I'm in the front car, we'll need to walk through car B before we reach the cafe. People already have their headphones on to listen to the GPS-triggered commentary, which highlights sites along the route. There's quite a few tour groups on today's train. Here's the cafe car. A lot of people have the same idea, so there's a bit of a queue. Here's a quick look at what's on offer. Obviously too early for ice cream. There's a range of sandwiches, fruit salad and microwavable meals, all featuring local produce. There's also muffins and savoury scones. I go for a cheese and bacon scone, which the crew heat for me. And alongside that, a granola and yoghurt chia pot with a white coffee. All up, this costs $14.30, that's in New Zealand dollars, noting that the instant coffee was free. The scone is delicious, freshly baked. We're now travelling through Auckland's southern suburbs. The yoghurt filled the remaining gap. We stopped briefly in Papakura to pick up more passengers. This is the current terminus of Auckland's Southern Line trains and the current end of the electrified line. Time to check out the open-air viewing car. The crew come through the train periodically to collect rubbish. It's ideal for taking photos or video without glass getting in the way. The Northern Explorer uses the principal railway line of the North Island, so we'll pass a number of freight trains. The North Island Main Trunk Railway is considered an engineering marvel.
The ladies were in their finery. Officials hurried about, getting in one another's way. This was a truly historic occasion. For 50 years, people had dreamed of this day. The gap had been closed. The capital city and the Queen City would now be linked. The main trunk is an artery. The trains that use it are the lifeblood of the North Island.
We'll learn more about this line's history as we head south.
Carriages might be pretty comfortable with their panoramic windows, but nothing beats the view from the open-air car. Up here you can really see, feel and hear the power of the locos.
A message appears on the TV screens when an audio commentary is available, so that passengers know to put their headphones on. There's also meant to be an audible ding, but it doesn't seem to be working in this carriage. The Waikato is the longest river in New Zealand, running 425 kilometres from Lake Taupo, stretching almost as far as Auckland. We travel through verdant farmland. As we slow down for Huntly, let's take a closer look at the route. We're not far from our next stop, Hamilton. After Otorohanga, the scenery heats up with a famous spiral, snow-capped mountains and impressive viaducts and gorges before reaching the west coast for the final run into Wellington. Huntly Station reopened in 2021 for the start of a new train to Huya, which runs between Auckland and Hamilton. I've made a video about it if you're interested. Mount Taupiri is a sacred mountain and burial ground for the Waikato tribe of the Maori people. We're now coming into Hamilton Station. This station is a junction for the East Coast Main Trunk and North Island Main Trunk lines. The station is about 3 kilometres from the centre of Hamilton, which is New Zealand's 4th most populous city. The city's biggest attraction is Hamilton Gardens. Whereas Botanic Gardens focus on plant collections, the focus at Hamilton Gardens is on different types of garden design from the past 4,000 years. Most passengers take the opportunity to stretch their legs. Quite a few passengers board here. After departing, we're held a short while at this signal, which is now clear. We're now heading into King Country, named for a Maori king who lived in exile here. At the time, the area was largely off limits to Europeans and the government. It wasn't until the Maori agreed to a survey for this railway in 1882 that the area gradually opened up for European settlement. This is an extinct volcano. We reach 100 kilometres per hour in this section. Because we're right behind the loco and generator in an open-air car, it's very loud. So it might be worth bringing earplugs. New Zealand is also known by its Maori name, Aotearoa, which loosely translates as Land of the Long White Cloud. Otorohanga is the nearest station to Waitomo Caves, famous for their glowworms. In 1986, the town briefly changed its name to Harrodsville in support of a local business Harrods, which was facing lawsuits by the famous department store of the same name. We're running about 5 minutes behind schedule. We cross our first major viaduct, completed in 1889, making it the oldest viaduct on today's journey, although it's been strengthened a number of times since. We're now climbing. The viewing car is getting busier as the scenery gets more dramatic. Film director Peter Jackson is reported to have said that it was on this very train line, aged 18, while reading The Lord of the Rings, that he realised New Zealand was very like Middle-earth. You might notice that the line is electrified. However, the electrification only runs from Hamilton to Palmerston North, so there are gaps on either end until the Auckland and Wellington suburban networks. So that's why we're hauled by a diesel. time for a hot chocolate to warm up. Because the coffee machine and milk steamer is broken, today it's free. Let's take a look at the toilets. You have to pull the handle up to lock the door.
Welcome to the bathroom. Standard vacuum toilet. Basin, soap and water, dryer. Clean, that's what you need.
This is a combined road and rail bridge with a single lane road on a deck beneath the rail line. The rail line is not currently in use, although the government has talked about reopening it.
About 12:30 and I think a lot of people are having lunch, so the viewing car is now a little bit quieter.
It seems that even in New Zealand you can't escape the Golden Arches. These are old British Rail Mark II coaches that were converted for use on Auckland push-pull trains. These are the same type of carriages that were refurbished for use on Tahuya. We're coming up to one of the world famous features of the line. When the North Island main trunk line was under construction, engineers were faced with the task of making a 139 metre ascent onto the North Island volcanic plateau. The original plan required a 20 kilometre detour with 9 massive and expensive viaducts. The problem was solved in 1898 by a surveyor who proposed a line that looped back upon itself and then spiralled around with the aid of tunnels, cuttings and embankments. This is known as the Raurimu Spiral and considered a feat of civil engineering. But before we reach it, it's worth taking a closer look at the exact route. First, we'll enter a 200-degree curve, climbing above the track on which we've just travelled. 2 sharp bends to the right follow, after which the line passes through 2 short tunnels. We then complete a full loop, crossing over the lower spiral tunnel through which we've just passed. If you look closely, you can see the overhead electrification system, which indicates where we're headed. From here, we can see the town of Raurimu and the lower track. I love all these ferns. It looks almost tropical. We enter the lower tunnel, which is the longer of the two. And here's the upper spiral tunnel. And here you get an idea of how far we've climbed. We're about to pass over the lower tunnel. It's peak time for the viewing car. Here's a look at the spiral from the air. However, the train in this footage is heading downhill. Between Raurimu and National Park Station, the train climbs about 220 metres over 11.5 kilometres. The straight line distance is 5.5 kilometres, so the spiral adds about 6 kilometres to the route. We're now on the Central Volcanic Plateau and coming into the town of National Park, named after Tongariro National Park. It's the highest railway station in New Zealand still served by passenger trains. If not for the cloud cover, we'd be able to see the distinctive volcanic cone of Mount Ruapehu, which featured in scenes from The Lord of the Rings as Mount Doom. Time for lunch. Here's a quick look at what's on the menu. Uh-oh, seems everyone beat me to it. The cafe is sold out of all meals and sandwiches. The onboard crew tell me it's highly unusual to sell out like this. So I go with the last rocky road, some peanuts and sparkling water. This cost me 17 New Zealand dollars. Not exactly cheap, I guess you could call it tourist prices, but when you're on holiday you don't mind. We now cross a series of viaducts spanning deep ravines. Makatote Viaduct is the third tallest viaduct in New Zealand. Blink and you'll miss it, but this is where the construction of the railway from north and south met.
Where the railheads had met, in the bush-covered King Country, a silver spike was driven. The new era had begun. This obelisk is erected opposite the spot where the Right Honourable Sir Joseph Ward, Premier of the Dominion, drove the last spike of the North Island main trunk line on November the 6th, 1908.
You have to keep on alert or you'll miss things such as this waterfall. In case you hadn't figured, it can get quite windy and cool and even wet out here. You'll also catch whiffs of the diesel fumes. Now that we're at a higher elevation, the weather's taken a turn for the worse, but I don't want to miss what's coming up. The old Hapuawhenua Viaduct was replaced by the one we're traversing in 1987. Calls to replace the old viaduct were voiced as early as the mid-1960s. Concerns mounted over the structure's fatigue. And here's a train travelling northbound over the new one. It's both taller and longer than the original. The new structure combines reinforced and pre-stressed concrete. The old viaduct is now part of a walking and cycling track. We're now coming into Okahune, a small town at the southern end of Tongariro National Park. In winter, the town is a popular base for skiers, and in summer for hiking, or as Kiwis call it, tramping. There are lots of small wooden houses here, originally built by New Zealand Railways for employees. We're about to cross the Tongariro River. It might look like a tranquil waterway now, but this was the site of New Zealand's worst rail disaster. On Christmas Eve in 1953, the wall of Crater Lake on Mount Ruapehu collapsed, sending a 6-metre high torrent of water, rocks, mud and debris known as a lahar down the Tongariro River. This is what a lahar looks like. There have been more than 60 lahar here since 1860. The 1953 lahar washed away a bridge pier. Minutes later, at 10:21 p.m, the Wellington to Auckland Express was approaching at 40 miles per hour. A passerby tried to warn the train with a torch. The driver initiated an emergency brake application, but it was too late. The first 5 coaches plunged into the river and were washed downstream. The 6th coach teetered on the edge, allowing time for all but one passenger to be rescued before it fell in two. Of the 285 people on board, 151 died. There's now an early warning system installed upstream to prevent this from happening again, and the bridge piers have also been strengthened. We're treated to a glorious view of Mount Ruapehu. It's the largest active volcano in New Zealand, and one of its 3 peaks is the highest point on the North Island. I think it's time for an afternoon beverage. This Merlot comes from Hawke's Bay, which is on the east coast of the North Island. There's a range of beer, wine and pre-mixed drinks on board. We're about to navigate a horseshoe curve, designed to avoid a steep gradient by adding about 2.4 kilometres to the route. Shortly we'll be heading in the opposite direction along this line. This is the Turangarere Horseshoe. The windy nature of the route means our average speed is quite low. The Rangitīkei is one of New Zealand's longest rivers, stretching 253 kilometres. We're about to cross a series of towering viaducts as the train negotiates the gorges of the Rangitīkei Valley. The water has carved the soft sandstone to create a narrow gorge with steep white cliffs and sharp bends. We're now on a 7-kilometre deviation opened in 1981 to move the line away from geologically unstable land. The North Rangitīkei Viaduct is the highest on the North Island main trunk line. The South Rangitīkei Rail Bridge is the second longest viaduct on today's route. This viaduct has twin-leg piers designed to rock in an earthquake to avoid damage. Here's a better view of them. Intriguing question. The cafe car also serves as the train's accessible accommodation, so includes a wheelchair hoist for boarding and an accessible toilet. Here's the wheelchair seating area. The cafe car also has a small seating area where passengers can eat or drink. I almost missed the final major viaduct. It spans the Makohine stream, which flows into the Rangitīkei River just over a kilometre downstream. The scenery flattens out so the viewing car gets a lot quieter. In the town of Marton, we reach the junction with the Wellington to New Plymouth Railway. It's from here they started building the North Island main trunk into the interior. Marton is named after the birthplace of Captain James Cook and is a service town for the fertile farming region that surrounds it. The train doesn't stop here. They make malt here. Today's journey takes 10 hours and 40 minutes to cover 681 kilometres, giving the train an average speed of 64 kilometres per hour. But this train is primarily aimed at tourists. It's not about getting from A to B quickly. You can drive this route in 7 to 8 hours, although that's not allowing for stops. And flying takes just over an hour, excluding the time to get to the airport and through security. There are calls for Kiwi Rail to introduce a daily rail service with more stops to better service locals. We're now in the town of Fielding, an Edwardian themed town which has won New Zealand's Most Beautiful Town Award 15 times. No, that's not a typo. The town is named after Colonel William H.A. Fielding, a director of the Emigrants and Colonists Aid Corporation, who negotiated the purchase of a 400 square kilometre block of land from the Wellington provincial government in 1871. We're now approaching a major freight yard in Palmerston North. The New Zealand EF class locos are currently the most powerful locos in the country. Intriguingly, there are 2 diesel locos behind the electrics. The electric locos are attached here and will haul the train to Hamilton, where electrification ends, so the diesels will probably continue the journey from there. We're arriving in the city of Palmerston North, the 8th largest urban area in New Zealand. We're running about 15 minutes behind schedule. A commuter train runs between Palmerston North and Wellington, the capital connection. It runs one return service on weekdays, but does not operate on weekends or public holidays. There's a campaign by local councils for that service to be improved. We're now on a non-electrified section of the route. Because there's no mobile reception on parts of the route, payments by card don't always work, so the cafe puts some passengers' food and drink on a tab against their seat number. They're asked to pay when we're in mobile range again. We parallel the Turangarire range. We reach 100 kilometres per hour in this section. The cafe closes about an hour before our arrival into Wellington. You might think we've passed all the scenic parts of the route. You'd be wrong. We're now in Waikanae, the start of the Kapiti Coast. This is the northernmost point for Metlink electric trains from Wellington. This is one of the fastest growing urban areas in New Zealand. We parallel State Highway 1, which links Wellington and Auckland. We reach one of the best stretches of coastal railway in New Zealand, the Kapiti Coast. We pass the Capital Connection, which is bound for Palmerston North. In the distance, we can see Kapiti Island. If you want to make sure you don't miss the sights on this trip, I highly recommend checking out the route guide on the website of the man in seat 61. His website also provides useful information on New Zealand's other long-distance services. I'll include a link in the description below. We're approaching a single line section, so need to wait for an electric train to pass. The train is no doubt full of commuters heading home from Wellington. That's the Tasman Sea. Somewhere out there is Australia. This footage provides another perspective on this coastline. So before the sun sets, we should probably talk about how much this trip costs. The Northern Explorer is marketed as a premium tourism experience. The standard fare between Auckland and Wellington is 219 New Zealand dollars. That's not cheap, but this is an all-day journey in modern, comfortable carriages and with incredible scenery. And the open-air viewing car is a wonderful addition, my favourite feature. I mean, just look at that view. To me, this trip is more than worth the fare. That said, I have sympathy with some New Zealanders who say the fare is not affordable for getting from A to B. Fares are slightly cheaper during winter. We pass through a number of tunnels and leave the coast for a short while, until we reach Plimmerton, which was a late 19th century seaside resort. Now a suburb of Wellington, it's named after John Plimmer, an English settler and entrepreneur who helped fund and direct construction of this section of the railway. On reaching Porirua station, the staff closed the viewing car because we're coming up to 2 tunnels, which will create a lot of diesel fumes. Known as the Tawa Flat deviation, the 2 tunnels were built to bypass a limited capacity single track section. The first tunnel we travel through is the longest, stretching 4.3 kilometres. The second tunnel is 1.2 kilometres long. The double track tunnels shaved 15 minutes off journey times when they opened in 1937. The site of Wellington Harbour means we're about to arrive at our destination. Wellington is the southernmost national capital city in the world, with a relatively dense city centre because of the surrounding hills. I highly recommend taking a trip on the Wellington cable car for the views from the top.
Thank you for travelling with us today. We've had our ups and downs throughout the journey today. You will be through a very good night.
We arrived slightly behind schedule. Here's a quick last look at the carriage now that it's empty, and quite a quick last look at the seat. Checked luggage is available from the rear of the train. If you want to take the Northern Explorer, I recommend booking early. It's popular. I believe more people choose to travel from Auckland to Wellington than the other way around. So if your plans are flexible and you're struggling to find availability, the northbound journey could be an option. Please note that the train does not normally operate on public holidays. So here I am in New Zealand's capital city, Wellington. What can I say about the Northern Explorer? It's a very comfortable trip. Now, I've been on a lot of scenic trains, both in Australia and in Europe and the US, and I have to say that this is up there with the best of them. The scenery is really spectacular. I think it's definitely a train trip you want to do. Wellington Railway Station opened in 1937 and is an architectural landmark. The crew is based in Auckland, so will stay overnight in Wellington and operate the northbound service tomorrow. The company which operates the Northern Explorer also runs the ferry between Wellington and Picton on the South Island. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my next video, a journey on the Inter-Islander ferry across the Cook Strait. Hope to see you then.